Welcome to Healing Your Families. I'm Emmylou Penrod, and I help you as a parent go from frustration, stress, and overwhelm to calm, confidence, and joy so that you can achieve the quality of family life that you desire. That's what I want for you. And I am so excited with our guest today. This is Kerre Burley. She is the CEO of Goulding Institute, SleepTalk. And I love her story. I love her message. Kerre, please share it with us.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I loved your intro, Emmylou, with when you're talking about calm, serene, joyful parents, because that's basically what we're all looking for. I'm sure that's what all parents are looking for. My story, well, look, I'm a mum of five. I have five boys, and I often laugh with people that I have boys only a mother could love. I certainly had boys with challenges as they were growing up. Of course, they're men now, so they don't mind me talking about it. And I survived. I think, Emily, I say to people, I survived five boys. But look, I was very fortunate when my last son was about 6 or 7, I went along and heard a lovely lady speak. She presented, her name was Joan Goulding, and she presented a concept that she had, I guess you could say, put together about 30 years ago for her own daughter who was struggling with many issues. And I sat in the audience and thought, oh, this is what I needed 10 years ago. So as a result of that, my last son, Sean, benefited from me utilizing this process with him. And I've been so impressed with the way he grew up compared to the struggles and tribulations of my other children have, that I got to know Joan very well. I've become a Goulding Process SleepTalk coach, and I know someone else's coach that we might announce later. I then become a consultant. I really loved what I was doing, and it's all about empowering parents. And then a little bit later, I become a trainer, and I'm now very proud to be the CEO of the Goulding Institute, because we're very much aligned. Emmylou, we're really making a difference, and the process is absolutely amazing. So thank you for inviting me on and allowing me to share it with others.
Well, thank you for coming. I'm so impressed with the benefits of this really very simple process, and yet it's so effective. And it makes sense that it's effective because of how the brain works.
Yes, well, to the listeners, Emmylou, we're talking about what we do as Goulding professionals is we just empower parents. We share with them, as you said, a very simple process that enables them to utilize it on their children. It's a daily practice. It takes no more than 2 or 3 minutes, but it just makes such a difference to children's moods, to children's beliefs, to children's values. Parents start thinking that, we're magicians, when in actual fact, it's the parents doing the work and the children are undergoing the changes. And it just makes such a difference on so many levels. I call it one of the best kept secrets in the world, because I just wish every parent knew this. I know it would be a better world.
Well, I'm old enough to remember the time when we felt like the brain was solid, that once you reached a certain age, you couldn't learn anymore, or once something happened, or if someone had a stroke, they would totally lose the use of that part of their body. And I've seen, it's been amazing. I've seen that change. They're learning more and more about the brain. This amazing organ
Well,
we have that.
that is true, and I think I'm a little older than you, Emmylou. But and I think the science took a long time to catch up. but it's now it's starting to be in the mainstream now that, you use it or you lose it. So this is why, people that are getting into becoming quite elderly are encouraged to pick up a language, to do crosswords, to actually make sure they're exercising their brain. Well, the Goulding process it's a very similar, it does work around neuroplasticity, which is basically all about, and we're not going to get too deep into neuroplasticity, but it's all about that the brain can change, and certain patterns, poor, I was going to say poor behaviors, can be reversed. And children basically now more than ever, with the levels of anxiety that are out there, parents are struggling. I mean, we've got COVID, we've got just the way society is heading. This is just such a beautiful process for a parent to learn, to just know that it's going to make their children happier and more comfortable and more resilient, which, everyone's throwing that word around at the moment. We've utilized that word for 40 years. Because when children start feeling that, hey, I'm okay here on a subconscious level, just not consciously, they can cope with so much more, but they're just so much more balanced and able to really get on and enjoy childhood. And as I mentioned before, Emily, that's what I saw. I saw 4 of my children struggling through childhood, struggling through puberty, even struggling onwards. And my 5th child, who had the benefit of this Goulding process, he's been on a different planet. He just has coped with so much, just even to the point where, we went to another country when he was about 7. We lived overseas in Vietnam. We just ripped him out of his comfort zone, and he thrived. And he still to this day is in his early 20s and just is coping so much better. And I guess that's why I'm so passionate about the process. It is, as you said, absolutely amazing.
And you saw what it did for your son. And I think that's what parents want, is they want their children to grow up to be happy, productive adults, able to contribute to society, do their own thinking, make their own decisions, set goals and reach them. And in order to do that, they have to have a positive mindset, or a positive mindset is required to move forward. And
And
sometimes they fall,
that's not easy.
yeah, they fall into negative thinking as a child. And I love the fact that that's not set in the stone, that can be reversed. And now you've mentioned what it's done for your son. What does it do for families? How did it impact the rest of the family?
Oh, well, look, over since I've been involved with the Goulding process, Emmylou, we have had such amazing results with children with anger issues, children on the spectrum, children with development issues, and we're talking eating and toiletry habits. And again, the scope is so broad. A lot of sibling rivalry. We do a lot of sibling rivalry. We do a lot of children who I guess have been labelled as ADHD or ODD, or there's so many labels now here in Australia. But again, the first thing it does, I believe, when a parent learns the process and starts on the first phase, it really children start feeling happier. They just feel more comfortable. They can't understand why. But again, this is the process. When it's repeated night after night, children start to feel much more confident in themselves. They just start to feel happier. And a lot of these behaviors or manifestations or acts, they just start dissipating. And that's where parents are so amazed. How is that possible? And I'll give you a perfect story, if you don't mind me sharing stories. I was working with a family who had their little 6-year-old doing speech therapy, and he'd been doing speech therapy for about 3 years. So they started him very young. Anyway, as I was working with the dad, one of the things he was telling me was a pattern that his son used to do is every afternoon when the dad used to pull up after a hard day's work, the son used to run down the hallway and go to what we call our the door a screen door, and he would lock the screen door straight away and prevent the dad from coming in. And the dad, you know, at first thought it was really cute, but then after, you know, months and months of it, it used to annoy him. And the mum just thought it was funny. It was just funny that he got locked out of his own house every afternoon. And when they started the SleepTalk practice, it really was, they wanted to work on their son's speech, because he hadn't been progressing very well at all. And I think it was probably about 3 weeks after they'd started the process. It was very early. We often encourage parents to do it at least to 3 months. But I got the call, Emmylou, and it was the dad. And he said, I have to tell you what happened this afternoon. He said, I got out of the car. He said, I trudged to the front door as I normally do, just waiting for the routine to happen again. But he said, my son comes straight through the door. He banged the door. He just pushed it open. He ran straight out. He said, Kerre, he ran straight up to me and put his arms around me and told me he loved me. And he said, I just couldn't believe it. A, he said the speech was very clear. But B, he said, for the first time ever, he was welcomed home by his small son. And he said he just picked his son up and he just walked in. And he said he felt $1 million. It was priceless. He said at that moment, I didn't care if his speech got better or not. My son, and he's never done it again. It was just something that he used to do. And that dad, they went on and actually, I think probably 4 months after we'd started the process, he was actually told that they didn't need speech therapy anymore. The child had just, his marks had gone off the map. He was back to normal. And that's just one of thousands of you know, case studies we have and things. And sometimes I think it's just priceless. It's just, you know, I say we make change one family at a time, but it's just so nice to know that that dad doesn't have that to deal with anymore. You know, complete different environment.
It strengthened their relationship as well as helped the son with the speech problem.
Oh, absolutely. And we have many parents who, you know, we know as parents, I know as myself as a parent, you do the best you can. But sometimes it's still not enough. And sometimes even the best parent, we can't control what children are being seen or exposed to, especially these days. And, you know, if the children are in that imprint period from 0 to 7, they're taking things in and they're storing it in their subconscious mind, and that basically can be, you know, where some of these, you know, strange behaviors come from. I mean, I'd love $1 for every time a parent says to me, oh, I don't know what to do about my child, he's out of control. And I just laugh, because I've been in it so long now that the process just makes it so much nicer for those parents. And they're not giving, you know, they're not relying on tablets or medication. They're not seeing psychologists, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's almost like the parents are doing it themselves, and that just gives them an extra, you know, lift as well, that they're taking over the reins. They're getting things back into control to get to that joy, to that, you know, that blissful parenting podium, as I call it.
I see it as something that would bond the family, that it would really unite them. While the parents may be doing this process for their children, I don't see how it can help but benefit them.
Well, it's interesting how many parents, and there might be some listening here today, Emmylou, who have been totally honest with me and told me that, you know, they have no communication with their child. You know, their communications, and these are very young children, and they'll say to me that we just don't communicate. We've just got nothing in common, and we don't speak to each other. We're like two strangers in the house. And again, it's a very unfortunate situation, but, you know, it does happen, and that seeing that reversed is nice, is very nice. And I'm full of stories, so you'll have to pull me up here, Emmylou. But there are many instances where, you know, we have just made it, the process has made such a difference and made parents' lives so much easier. But communication is a big one. And certainly, as I'm sure you're aware, you know, we're not born with parenting skills. You know, we have to learn them as we go. And I know most parents are doing the best they can. So to actually give them a little bit of advice and actually get them working on, just using the script every night. Children do let their barriers down. Children do basically, just like this little one does, all of a sudden let mummy and daddy in. All of a sudden they start feeling that they're loved, and there's not that control that's going on in the family. And it's just, as I said, it's amazing. So if there's any listeners out there that think, oh, well, I've got no hope with my children, especially as they're getting up to the teenage years, I'm here to say to them, that's not true. There's a great process called the Goulding Process that they should be looking into.
Well, I know of one case study myself personally of a preteen age that was suffering from depression. And this is really sad to see so many more children dealing with depression and anxiety than ever before. But this process made a difference. So I know that it does work for older children as well. And I also learned as a school teacher that when children misbehave, it's because they're hurting. They're hurting inside. Sometimes they hate themselves. And this is a process that could help them with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As I said, I look back now at my first 4 children, and I had Emmylou, one that stuttered, so one that had a speech impediment. And I had one that had very low self-esteem, and it didn't matter how much I told him that everybody loved him, he was great. He'd actually made those decisions when he was little, inside, that he was not worthy. And it breaks my heart now to know that I could have done something if I'd known about the Goulding process. I had another son who was very hyperactive and would never do anything you told him to, one of those children. And I just thought to myself, I tried everything as a parent to try and keep him in control. And I still remember, and I know parents can relate to this, I can remember being in the shopping center and him just being a total little, what I call a little monkey. And the people in the aisle, half the people in the aisle I could see were looking at me as a parent going, why don't you control your children? And I could see the other half of people in the aisle were just moving out of the way, just going, well, I'll go to the next aisle. So, as a parent, it was so embarrassing, and I just didn't know what to do. And of course, my other son, I had a doctor who just wanted to say, I'll just pop him on pills. We can't do any tests for the next 12 months, but I'm sure he's got what you think he's got. So let's just put him on medication. And I wouldn't do that as well. But I mean, I could have easily gone down that path, as we want the best for our children. So yes, I'm now working on my grandchildren, so my children might have missed the Goulding process, but at least my grandchildren now are enjoying the process. So that's something.
Yes, I was put in that same position where a doctor said we can just put him on medication, but it has side effects, and that's not what we want for our children. So to have a solution that is natural, in no way harmful, there are no side effects, it does require consistency, right?
Absolutely. And this is the thing that that I often say to parents, and if they're not getting results, then I can normally guarantee they're not doing it every night. We really look at 2 to 5 minutes a night, and it's more habit forming than anything else, Emmylou. When you think of what a mum and a dad does just before they go to bed, they've just spent an hour cooking dinner, they've basically put the kids in the bath, they've cleaned their teeth, they've done, they've got them all ready for bed, which has probably taken quite a while. And all of a sudden the Goulding process just takes an extra 2 to 5 minutes every night. So it's all, I say to them, it's almost like brushing their teeth. It's just if you get into the habit and you do it regularly, and of course many parents do when they actually realize the benefits of it, that extra 2 to 5 minutes just makes such a difference, not only to the children, but a lot of my parents say it's their special time too, and it's their time that they can really go in and just with a few words, a few lines of script, they can really impact or tell their children how much they love them. And particularly for some of our dads, Our mums have no problems with it, but in a lot of cases, the masculine energy of a partnership still in this day and age feels uncomfortable to share that with their children. Or I remember having one dad say to me, "Oh, he's such a little, he's so misbehaved. I can't possibly go in and tell him how much I love him." And I said, "Well, that's exactly the reason why you need to go in and tell him and speak to him while he's asleep, because he needs to know that, and I often say, it's not the behavior that we should be focusing on. It's the child. It's what's underneath that behavior. And as you said, most children, when I have a parent saying to me, "I don't know why he does this, I don't know this," it's like, well, let's not worry on what's happening. Let's go beyond that. And let's work at the core. Let's try and get that child feeling. And of course, we do a lot of bullying, not only for the children who are being bullied, but a lot of children need help that are actually the bullies. And it's still, Emma, comes from fear. It comes from these children not feeling worthy, or they're not feeling in control. And so that's where the Goulding process works really, really well.
I think they're not feeling love, they're not feeling that love. And I really see love as the answer. I love that quote about all children really need is love. That's the recommendation. And if that doesn't work, then increase the dose.
It's one of Joan Goulding's favorite sayings. So I'm glad you pulled that up. She'll be very happy that we mentioned that. And do you know, I fear, Emma Lou, here in Australia, maybe not the US, but certainly I fear here in Australia that many parents are embarrassed to talk about love or loving. And I think it's our baggage. It's a baggage from a different era. At the end of the day, with times being as tough as they are, it is really important for parents to understand that, yes, children do need to feel loved. But I've seen parents turn around and say to their child, "Well, I love you. You know that." And I'm thinking, wow, there was a lot of effort going into that. That's really not what it's about. That's, and children know that. They're on to you. If you're saying something in a sarcastic, well, the young children don't even know what sarcasm is. But if something is not heartfelt, if it's not true, it's not authentic, it comes through. And often parents do love their children, but they're tied up with, their own stuff. And look, I don't mind sharing you. I've had a dad in the past say to me, "Well, my father never told me he loved me, and look at me, I'm okay." and you feel like saying, "Really?" You feel you're okay. And that in that particular instance, I was seeing this family because there was some challenges with their children. But that dad, and again, when you talked about parents that were frustrated and angry and really upset with the way that their life is shaping up, I watched that dad go from a very hard, resistant man, not just with his children, but to his life in general. And I watched him just through the process. 3, 4, 5 months down the track, it was a different man. It was like, and I noticed it, and the wife noticed it. But we didn't say anything to him. We just talked about it on the side. So yeah, it's quite incredible.
It was a benefit to the entire family. And going back to what you were saying about love, there is a huge difference between being loved and feeling loved. If we all have our own love language, and children especially need to have love expressed to them in a way that's meaningful.
In so many different levels, yes.
Yeah, you can have the parent who's just pouring money on them, giving them whatever they want, but what the child really wants to feel loved is time with their parents or physical touch.
And this is again where Emma Lou, and I know I keep harping on this, but again, when we're doing the process, we teach parents to bypass the conscious mind and actually talk to the children when they're in a sleeping state. So we teach them how to do it properly. They're talking to the subconscious or the unconscious mind. And again, that for any children who are resistant, for any of the older children who have really got a lot of challenges with the relationship with their parents, that can be pushed aside. And as I mentioned before, Joan started this process with her daughter, who at the age of 7 was diagnosed with a lot of challenges. She had been a very angry little 7-year-old when they finally got the diagnosis that yes, there was brain damage, and yes, there was dyslexia, and she had a multitude of challenges. And the process was started simply because Joan just knew that her daughter would not cope in life being an angry young woman. And it's interesting, after they worked on her, and the process came to the point that when she was basically getting into work, and when she was getting looked after, they used to call her, they used to call her like the little ray of sunshine, because she was so animated, and she'd talk. She was called Chatterbox. And so it was like all of that can be turned around. So, and Joan, to this day, as her daughter is still basically has those challenges, but she's lived a happy life. She basically has her own home. She's traveled. She's, and Joan thanks the world every day that she did this process. But as a result of Michelle, her daughter, benefiting from it, there's also been thousands and thousands of families around the world benefit from the process as well. And yet I still feel that it's still one of the best kept secrets. We
Yes.
really need well, here in Australia at the moment, I can tell you I'm having calls from parents whose children are too scared to have friends around. They're now too scared to socialize. These are small children, which we know they need this. They don't want to go to school because they're frightened. They've pulled all this fear in from, the local media and COVID and everything that's happening. And that's only going to get worse. We really need to address it now. But I don't know what it's like in the US, but at the moment, every time the news is on, it's always negative, and it's going to be really hard to shield young children from that. They're listening, they're hearing, they're listening to mum and dad talk, and yeah, it's a very anxious time for us all.
It is. It is indeed. It is the same way here. So, the big question. So, how can parents learn more about this process? How can they learn how to do this and bring this wonderful gift to their families? What a legacy Joan gave to her daughter Michelle. What a rich life she gave her daughter. So, how can parents do this for their children?
Okay, well, we have a great website, which I'm welcome to. People can go and have a look at the Goulding Process /SleepTalk. On that website, they can, if they wish, they can find Joan's book. Joan's written a book. There's an ebook as well that they can get their hands on to start on the first phase. As well as that, though, not everybody is a do-it-yourselfer. So we have what we call foundation coaches, as you know, Emmylou, and foundation coaches can also help people basically with the first phase of the process. And am I allowed to share with people
Please
that
do.
I have had the distinct pleasure to actually qualify Emmylou as a Goulding Foundation coach. So, Emmylou, in turning that back at you, anybody that wants to find out more or wants somebody to hold their hand and share with them the first stage, it can be I can send them back to you, because you are now a qualified foundation coach. And I'm very excited to say that, no matter where they are in the world, with the way the internet is now, you can reach out and find a foundation coach, which can do very much a bit of a chat and a session, explain to you how to deliver the statements. We, like foundation coaches, educate parents on the reasoning behind it, on the right way to do it, and then a parent can get started. It's as simple as that. It's a very easy process to get started. The more, when we go into children that have many more deeper challenges, there is a phase 2 and a phase 3. And for phase 2 and phase 3, you can find a consultant. And consultants, well, we have over 200 consultants, Emmylou, around the world at the moment. And again, people can go on the website, they can have a look at where people are from, but a foundation coach can certainly get them on their way, which is fabulous.
Yes, yes, it is. And the other thing, if they go to the website, they can read more about Joan's story and what her daughter's story. And
Yes, and I'll be clear about that, because yes, there are products on the website, but when the website was set up, it's very much set up as a educational website for parents, so they can read about the research, some research that's been happening. They can read about the Q&A. They can read then on all the areas that parents have sent in, little case studies and success stories as well. Then they can go buy a product as well.
okay,
But I'm telling people, it's not a big flash commercial website. It's a website that will give parents information, will give parents, a lot about Joan's story, and certainly how the Goulding process came
it's
about.
it's a
Um,
valuable educational. But say the
yeah,
URL. Just say the URL so they can.
yes. Well, Goulding is Goulding. So if you look up gouldingprocess.com, you can't miss
Okay.
it. And at
There
the
it
end of the
is.
day, it's as I said, it's definitely worth, when I meet parents who are just pulling their hair out. You mentioned it early, Emmylou. They'll say, "Is that it? Is it so simple?" It's like, well, yes, it is.
Yep.
And it's not. We don't. It's not a complicated thing. And unfortunately, in this day and age, many people think that something has to be complicated to work. But no, it's just as you said, a parent learns it properly and then is consistent and then can reap the benefits.
It's love. Love isn't complicated, but it is the answer. Thank you so much, Gary.
My
Love
absolute
having you
pleasure.
here.
My
And
pleasure.
yes, so stay tuned, Jean. There are many show hosts on our Win Win Women channel. Jean Barr is on next with resilience and work life balance. And Janine's Voice is on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. Pacific time. And this Saturday, she's going to be talking about how to forgive yourself when you make mistakes as a parent. Very valuable, good discussion for parents to hear. So join me again next week at the same time. We'll be talking about parenting styles. So see if you can recognize yours. So until then, thanks for joining me. Love yourself and love your families. This is Emmylou Penrod at healingyourfamilies.com.